Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Shaman Circle. I'm your host, Allie Blair, and today we are talking about being biracial in the wellness industry. Now, the title says being biracial and not just race in the wellness industry because I am multiple races. I am black and white, and as a multiracial human being, I will be sharing my experience navigating the wellness industry that was not necessarily created for people like me in mind. Now, having a podcast episode on this particular topic, having this conversation matters for many different reasons. First and foremost, I want to validate other Black women, other people of color that work and find themselves in the wellness industry who have been tokenized and unvalidated and underrepresented and underappreciated and taken advantage of, and all of these things that we experience in this industry. But then on the other side, I want my non-melanated brothers and sisters to lean into the discomfort of this conversation and learn from the experiences of someone who is both Black and white. So those are just a few of the reasons why we're diving in headfirst into discomfort and race and wellness. Because if we're allowed to be honest with each other, the wellness industry was not created for people of color. It was not created with Black women in mind. The concept of softness and the concept of the Black woman, we were not told those go together. We have to be resilient. We have to be strong, right? These wellness spaces, these spaces of softness were not inherently created for people that look like me. And so I'm leaning into the discomfort, and we're going to have a conversation about race, my friends. Now, the whole concept of this podcast episode actually came about because of a not so great experience I had at a horse retreat. Now, I had brought a few of my coaching clients with me, and I was familiar with one of the women running this day-long horse retreat at a horse farm. And when we got there, something just said, this is going to be a day. And so without inundating you with all of the details, there is still a full 15-minute TikTok video that has, at the time of this recording, just under 200,000 views. So if you want to learn the whole story, you can find that on TikTok. But long story longer, I felt racially uncomfortable. I was the only Black person, and I brought a friend or a client friend, who is a woman of color. She's not Black, but we have a very similar skin tone. So there were two people of color in a retreat led by two white women, and the only other participants were a dozen other white women. And we got to the point where I was asking a question about something in response to what someone else had said. And one of the retreat leaders quieted me and shushed me and told me that I needed to be quiet for this part of the retreat. She didn't do that to the white women who were speaking before, but it was a problem when I had a question. And then she called me by the wrong person's name, and the person's name who she called me by just happened to be the other person of color. Now, to my white listeners, that may not seem like a big deal. To my fellow people of color, you know how fucking heartbreaking it is, frustrating, infuriating it is to be one of two people of color in a room and to have you two mixed up. It just hurts. And so I shared my experience and went on a 15-20 minute rant on TikTok, and that ended up going a little viral. And I said, oh, we have topics to discuss. We have things to talk about. So that's how this whole episode came to be, was from a viral video on TikTok about being biracial in the wellness industry. Now, I shared my origin story, life story, whatever you want to call it. You know a good amount about me, but I do want to share a little bit of my childhood and how being a mixed race Black woman has shaped my worldview, not just as a wellness practitioner, but as a human being, right? So I was adopted at birth. I am the product of a one-night stand. One could reason I was born into grief. My birth father to this day does not know that I exist. And that is the one Black parent I have. I was adopted at birth by an entirely white family. I am half Jewish and half Christian, and I have no human ties to my Blackness, which is almost funny now that I find myself being an ancestral shaman and feeling very, very strong and secure and proud and welcomed and loved in my lineage. But I get to feel that from a shamanic point of view, from a spiritual point of view. It's not that connection to my Blackness will probably never be found, at least for my lineage, right? I can connect to Black culture, but that connection to my lineage in the human realm, I may never have because of the circumstances that I was born into. Growing up, I was always too much of something. I was too Black for the white kids, but I wasn't Black enough for the Black kids. And so I found myself in this other, right? I'm half Black, half white, half gay, half straight. Like I was too gay for the straight kids, but not gay enough for the gay kids. Like that was my story growing up. That was my experience in middle school and in high school. And so, you know, as someone who like clearly is other, right? Like you may not see my skin color as, oh, she's Black. Oftentimes I'm seen as Dominican, Mexican, or Puerto Rican is usually what people assume. So your first instinct may not be like, oh, she's a Black woman, but it's certainly not, oh, she's a white woman, right? And so as someone who is mixed, who is Black and white, but grew up in an entirely white family and has this proximity to white privilege, you know, as close as I was and as close as I am to the concept of white privilege, from a societal standpoint, I can't claim my whiteness because of the color of my skin. I can claim my Blackness, right? But if I told you I'm half white, instead of like, oh, I'm mixed race, I'm half Black, half white, like if I just said, oh, I'm half white, you'd be like, okay, what's the other half? Like I mixed race, specifically Black and white people, find themselves in a very interesting space where we can't necessarily claim that part of ourselves because we are not included in the white population. It's a very fascinating dynamic to grow up in as a sociology major. Objectively looking at my life story, I find it fascinating. Subjectively, it's been traumatizing and empowering all at once. So being mixed race, but being so close to white privilege my whole life, you know, I'd like to think I have a pretty unique perspective on the concept of race in any industry I find in, but specifically in the wellness industry. I have always had to navigate the in-betweenness, having to code switch. You don't need to be biracial to understand that. We do what we have to do to keep ourselves safe in spaces that were not inherently made for us. And I noticed a real lack of diversity in the wellness industry from pretty early on. You know, even before I was like knee deep in the woo woo and I had any type of awareness, I could still see like, oh, I'm the only Black person here again. And it just, well, it's gotten me to the point where I feel the need to speak up publicly about it, you know? Now, I don't want to, again, inundate you with a bunch of different personal stories of how, you know, I've been harmed as a biracial person in this industry, but we all, you know, all people of color, we have our stories of this is when I was harmed. This is when a microaggression really got to me. This was when a white friend or a white teacher or a mentor or a yoga instructor that I really liked, like, she made me feel pretty uncomfortable and never really acknowledged that. Like, people of color, not just in the wellness industry, but I'm speaking in America, but I'd like to think just about all of wherever patriarchal society lives. Like, we have these stories of being harmed by the systematically and systemically racial or racist structures that we find ourselves in. And no, that's not at all me blaming like current white people for where we are, although we all certainly have an impact in it, right? But if we as a people, as a collective, cannot start at the baseline of this society was not built with everyone in mind. The society, this industry, this concept of wellness was not created with the intention of helping all people. Like, until we can get to that foundation, we can only build so much as a collective. So I've had my personal experiences, you know. We was asked to help facilitate a wellness, personal development, professional development, this whole conference out in Ohio. Spent many, many hours helping to prep everything, prep myself to help facilitate. And, you know, we get there and this white woman bulldozes over it all. And there is no consideration for the person you like asked to come in to help. It doesn't help that I was the only person of color that was on the team. And when another Black woman came to me and said, hey, you know, I've been at this conference, I've been at this experience, and I haven't seen any other Black people like be called on to, you know, share their wisdom. I'm looking around and I'm like, oh shit. There are 250 people around me and 3 of them, including me, are Black. Like, as people of color, women of color, we've all experienced one version or another of that in a wellness space, in a conference, in a workshop, whatever it is, right? I had gone on a personal retreat to Puerto Rico. It was led by, ironically, the same person who brought me in for this experience in Ohio. And it was as beautiful of an experience as it could be, but 6 hours in, I'm immediately met with racial trauma of, I'm in this wellness space. I am the only person of color here. I look like the help more than I look like a participant because we're in Puerto Rico and we all look, I am mistaken to be Puerto Rican often, right? And so here I am, very aware that like I don't look like my peers. I look like the help and I'm kind of being treated like it as well. And that was a very traumatic experience to be asked to be so vulnerable and open and honest about my trauma in a room where there is no mirror and no representation and no other person of color to feel safe with. As people of color, this is a quote unquote normal experience that we have. We are oftentimes, when we're the only Black person or the only person of color in the room, like, we're the token Black friend. We're tokenized, we're Hollywoodized, we're misunderstood, we're misperceived, we're put on this like really weird fetishy pedestal sometimes. Like, it's very uncomfortable to be the only person who looks like you in a space where your intention is to heal. This even goes not just into the wellness industry, but in weddings, special events, entertainment, hospitality. You know, that's how I started my career over a decade ago, was in weddings and special events. And I was the owner's assistant at a catering company. I would work 40, 50 hours a week in the office and then work the weddings and work the corporate events on the weekend as well. Didn't realize at the time I was absolutely being taken advantage of, making $30,000, working 80 hours a week. But hey, I was 20. I had no idea what I was doing. I did my best and I found myself here anyway. Now, I bring that up because I would spend, 18 months with a couple planning out the china, the silver, the glassware, the linen colors, the guest list, the reception, the timeline, all of the things. But then when we would get there, oftentimes, because of many reasons. We don't even need to get into that. For many reasons, oftentimes, more often than not, we were working with white couples, and not interracial couples, just white couples. And more often than not, I would find the bridal party have very odd misconceptions and misunderstandings of my role there. We would joke and say that these people saw me as the, part of my language, bridal bitch, because not realizing that, like, I had helped create this magical day from start to finish with this couple. I am not seen as like the leader of our staff. I'm not seen as the event captain. I'm just seen as the help, not realizing, you know, I created a 200 person beautiful wedding reception from start to finish, right? Like, there was just a lack of acknowledgement, a lack of respect, a lack of belief that a young woman of color could be in charge of the catering crew, you know? I've seen this in so many different studios, workshops, trainings, conferences, you know, unless it is led by a Black woman or led by a person of color in these wellness workshops or these yoga classes or yoga trainings, what have you, I am usually one out of maybe 3 or 4 other people of color. And that could be out of dozens of people, even up to 100 people. This space was not made for us. And we can see that with the lack of representation we have. And that can be a really uncomfortable topic to discuss and dissect, but until we are willing to come face to face with that discomfort, we cannot grow as a society. There are an abundance of disparities, an abundance of lack of representation for people of color, of people of color in the wellness industry. And it is lovingly naive of my fellow white practitioners to believe otherwise. Not only is there a lack of representation, there's a lack of access. You know, I'm 10 miles out from Baltimore City. I can think off of the top of my head 4 different yoga studios where a drop-in class is over $22. That's insane. I'm over here partnering up with the local dispensary to offer $5 community yoga tickets. I recognize we all gotta make our money, and especially with a brick and mortar, like, there are bills to pay, and especially in yogic spaces, we have a moral duty to allow this work to be accessible to not just to others, but to all. You know, if you have a $28 drop-in class in Baltimore City, I pray to God you're doing 2 free classes a week for the community. There is no access. That $28 at the time of this recording, that's half a tank of gas. It costs $55, $60 to fill up your tank these days. That's almost $30. That's a lot of money to, let's throw in a stereotype, a single Black mother in Baltimore City working 3 jobs with 2 kids, and they have to get the food on the table. Going to a $28 yoga class is not the fucking priority. Surviving is. And not just in the wellness industry, but in all of America. This system that we live in has been set up so people of color never thrive. We simply do our best to survive. That is why these wellness spaces are not made for us. They are made for those of privilege. They're made of those that have access to more money, that don't have to worry about if they can pay rent or not, that don't have to worry about how they're going to put food on the table. The concept of wellness in this patriarchal, capitalistic society is rooted in privilege. And until we can sit here and acknowledge that and sit in that fact together, we cannot grow. So you gotta excuse me if I get a little passionate today. But I believe this work is for all human beings. I believe showing up in wellness spaces, showing up in yogic spaces, prioritizing your practice, prioritizing your sense of self, prioritizing your meditation, that is for all, not just those who can pay $30 for an hour-long yoga class. Things like that are simply not sustainable. Not even for people of color, but for the average human being in America. The concept of the concept of wellness is rooted in patriarchy and colonization of ancestral and indigenous practices. We have to come together as a wellness community and say, I understand that things were not created fairly, and I recognize I have the power to help change that. If we choose to stay silent in the face of misrepresentation, in the face of racist structures, staying silent may not inherently make one racist, but staying silent enables and upholds the racist establishments that we find ourselves in. And at this point, my friends, we no longer have the luxury of staying silent in the face of oppression, whether or not we're talking about the wellness industry. Now, clearly, representation is important to me. As you can tell by my passionate words here, right? Representation is important. It's important to me as a human being. It's important to me as the founder of the Lone Wolf community. Representation is important. Now, I mentioned this before in the beginning of the podcast. I'm half of a lot of things, right? I am half white and half black. I am half Jewish and half Christian. I am half gay and half straight. I am half nature and nurture because I was adopted, right? I am half of all of these things. And yet, I find myself not always seeing myself within all of those things. From my queerness to my blackness to my psychic abilities, I've not always seen me represented in spaces that I find myself in. And so sooner or later, I made my own space. And so that identity of being half of all allows me to resonate with other lone wolves of the world. You know, my identity informs the way that I hold space. I understand so deeply what it feels like to be misunderstood and to feel like you don't belong and to feel like you're not welcome in a space that you thought was for you, but turns out really wasn't. Like, I know all too well how soul crushing like coming face to face with that can be. And so I do my best as a community leader to hold space for all of you, for you to explore all of you. Now, this is not just a rant of me like completely shitting on the wellness industry. There are beautiful spaces where people of color can feel seen and safe and heard and supported. There are plenty of awesome anti-racist white people who are knee deep in this work, getting uncomfortable, advocating for their friends of color, for their community members of color. Like, absolutely, this exists. And we still need to talk about this. There are still ways that we can do better. There are still ways that we can show up for our people. And so for the industry, whether you're a student, whether you're a teacher, a participant, a yoga instructor, a yoga studio owner, wherever you find yourself, we can do better. Some tangible ways of how to bring more inclusivity, bring more safety to your spaces. Hold space for Black women's voices. Stop interrupting us. Stop thinking our tone means that we're aggressive and we have an attitude. This is our natural tone of voice. I am so tired of white women calling me aggressive when I ask to hold them accountable because they don't like my tone of voice. Ma'am, when have you seen me raise a fist? Like, come on. That's not our burden to carry. And this might be the point where white people are like, oh God, we're getting uncomfortable. My friend, lean in. Lean into the discomfort. Let's grow together. Your discomfort is safe here, but we cannot keep avoiding accountability. Listen to us. Hold space for our voices. Believe us when we tell you something. If a Black person says, hey, that didn't really feel good. Hey, that hurt my feelings. Hey, that was low-key a microaggression and I don't really fuck with that. Take a moment and listen. Don't say, well, I'm not racist. Ma'am, no one called you that. I'm saying you did something that was racially harmful, and from a place of love, I'm trying to hold you accountable in that way. Can we do that together? I need y'all to be strong enough to say yes. Ask questions. Instead of assuming, instead of judging, get curious. In the last 6 months alone, I've had specifically 6 white women that I've met through the wellness industry, some of them I've known for years. Something has come up that was racially harmful to me as a person of color, and I said, hey friend, I didn't really fuck with that. Hey friend, that didn't feel good. And 6 times, 6 different women chose to end years-long friendships with me than sit in this discomfort for 10 minutes. Get curious. If a person of color is brave enough to get uncomfortable first, right? And say, hey friend, that didn't really feel good. Get curious. Oh shit, what happened? What did I say that made you feel some type of way? Like, get curious. Could you imagine the world that we would live in if we replaced judgment with curiosity? Oh my God, what a gift that would be. Ask questions, get curious, hold space for us. Question your own privilege, acknowledge your own privilege. Acknowledge your own whiteness and all that comes with it. No, you did not create the racist structures that we all live in, and also, as white people, you surely benefit from them. It's okay to say that. It's okay, my friend. Like, we don't blame you. We're just asking you to help us change it. You're allowed to question that. You're allowed to challenge that. You're allowed to acknowledge your own whiteness, and that can be okay. Those types of things, that type of acknowledgement, that type of accountability, that is what real community care looks like. That is what real repair within relationships, within community looks like. And that is how we go from performative, Black Lives Matter flags, not doing shit else, to actually making an impact in your community. I want to shift gears for a moment here before we start to close out, and I want to specifically address my people of color. I know a bit of that rant was for my white siblings here, and I hope and pray that you chose to stay along, and it's okay if not. You know, what a gift free will is. But I want to shift gears here and speak specifically to my listeners of color, specifically to Black women. Keep showing up. As long of a rant as this is on how wellness spaces were not created for us, they are made for us. We're worthy of them. Keep showing up. Allow yourself to get uncomfortable. Sit in the shit with your white friend when they hurt you. If you feel that is the right decision, if that is something you can do safely, right? But keep showing up. Have the difficult conversations if you can. Advocate for yourself. Take up space, not just on your yoga mat. Take up space in the space. Although this industry may not have been birthed with Black women in mind, we belong here. The Black woman, the archetype of the Black woman is the strong, resilient woman. We deserve softness too. We deserve rest too. Please keep showing up in wellness spaces. Please keep prioritizing your mental, your spiritual, your emotional health. Please keep showing up. There are people out here actively creating spaces for us. And if you find that you cannot find a space where you feel safe, maybe that is your sign to create your own. You have permission to take up space. You don't need permission, my friend, but you have it. Please keep showing up. All right, my friends. I feel like I could go on another hour-long rant here, but I think this is a good place for us to pause. I think there is a lot of dialogue to be had. I think there's a lot of opinions to hold space for, and I certainly welcome that. If you're curious about this conversation, if you want to lean into the discomfort with me, questions are welcome, feedback is welcome. Please write in, send me an email, share your own experience. I absolutely welcome conversation. And I'd like to think our humanity is strong enough to sit in that discomfort together and come out the other side. So I welcome that. But I think this is where I will leave you when it comes to being biracial and navigating the wellness industry. The last thing I want to leave you with, if you feel called, if this has moved something in you or stirred something up in you, I invite you to journal or just straight up think about it. Reflect in your mind. What does your identity look like within wellness? What does wellness mean to you? What does wellness mean to your identity? I would love to see you reflect on the concept of your identity and wellness. Sit in the discomfort, see what comes up. In our next episode, we will kind of shift gears out of the origin story and dive into what's wrong with holistic healing. I am very excited to chat about that, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself. We'll do that in the next episode. So I think I will leave you with just some words of love. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for leaning into the discomfort with me. And you know where to find me if you want to continue the conversation. So thank you. Happy day, evening, week, weekend, whatever. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.